Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. Gee, it's been a whole week since we did this last time.
But not a whole week to the people who are listening out there. It might have just been that they just finished off iteration 103.
Yeah, if you're listening to these in order, well, hey, cool, that's great. I hope you're enjoying.
You don't get achievement points for it, but we do recognize and appreciate you doing so.
Well, I suppose if you email us and tell us, you don't even have to, just lie. Just email us and tell us that you're listening to this, and we will, I don't know, we'll say something nice about you or something.
Or I could try drawing, like a little award plaque sort of thing. Right?
Yeah, there you go. So, in case you don't know where you are, you know where you are, the Simulationist. In case you don't know what day it is, well, for us, it's the 31st of August, 2014.
Which makes it the center of the Labor Day long weekend this year.
Yeah, happy Labor Day, everybody.
It's an interesting Labor Day for those who are in BC, because at this point, nobody's certain whether or not the kids will actually be going to school on the Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. Many of us are worried. Not me. I don't have kids.
I'm worried in theory that they might not be going.
I don't know. Yeah, we don't necessarily take political stands, but I generally like with the teachers.
I'm 95% behind the teachers. If they would allow the grade 12s, like the grad class, and kindergarten through 3 to be able to start up on Tuesday, I'd be behind them 100%. Because that way, with kindergarten through 3, you'd get the kids who most need the good start for the education, and who are sometimes the hardest to get a proper, babysitter for.
Yeah.
And with the grad class, that way they have a nice, easier time making sure that, yes, okay, everything's there for me. I can graduate proper. I don't have to worry about anything going on weird like that. And so that way, the teachers could say to, the parents out there, we really do care about the kids. That's why, grade 4 through 11, we have to impose this in. But we will make sure that the people graduating can go on to their post-secondary stuff at the proper and correct fashion. And those young kids who need the education the most are getting it.
Okay, well,
but still,
sure.
Still I'm 95% behind, because the government really hasn't proven anything in my eyes, aside from an attempt to break a union.
Yeah, well,
I guess I kind of dig in theory, see if they're a strong enough union, try and break them.
I see. Test their mettle.
It forges them stronger than ever, or it breaks them as though the weakness they are. But that's just me, and I'm weird that way, so I don't think anyone else is trying to see it in that perspective.
Yeah, nobody else is quite weird, just quite the way you are weird. So this is iteration 104 of the Simulationist podcast. I promise the rest of it is, who knows?
Probably
we might get political, I don't know.
But I'll say this, at 104 iterations, our metal has been tested. We are strong.
Yeah, I suppose it has. I mean, I guess we're kind of, in a way, we're here to stay. I don't know. I suppose we are.
Unless, the whole, global warming thing speeds up a lot quicker and we suddenly find ourselves out of house and home because, the ocean, went up a couple meters. But then I think everyone else has some bigger problems and they can understand that we missed a week or two.
Yeah, could happen. My name throughout this whole bit has been Josh Trelevin, and that other voice you hear...
Ryan Kirkby for the last 103 point something, in fractional amount. We're already about 4 minutes in, so yeah. 4 90ths.
Yeah, and we have the occasional guest. I should put together a list of all the guests we have. It's not very long, but it's growing.
Oh, could you put them in order of like who's been on the most? So that way we can have the number one special co-host.
Yeah, I think that would be Jason right now.
Yes.
I think Jason's been on the most.
In which case, I think he'd appreciate it more than the others too, because he's nerdy enough to say yes. I made it on the top of the list.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, introductions out of the way. Well, we should do recaps. Is that recaps of the week? What we've been doing, what we've been up to, simulation-wise.
Fictional travels,
yes,
I like to think of it.
Travels in the imaginary universe is multiple.
The
universes.
Infinite palette of reality.
The multiverses.
Yeah, I just like how Tom Smith puts it in his song, Rich Fantasy Lives. It's reality's infinite palette. And so I think of it as a nice travel that way. And, honestly, he's a good singer and more poetic than me, so I'll steal it and use it for myself.
Cool.
Even if I technically already gave him credit.
Yeah, you just gave him credit, so there you go.
But, so where have you been journeying this week?
Okay, a couple things. 2 movies I watched today, which I will get to in a bit. But first I wanted to mention Fringe Festival wraps up as we speak. So by the time our listeners are listening, there are no more Victoria shows until next year.
Not till 2015.
But I did watch a couple more shows. I wanted to mention. Okay, now I can't remember the name of it. I wanted to mention one of the shows. It was a dinosaur show. It was really fun. It was like this one.
Was it like The Land Before Time?
Well, it was. I don't know how much to give away.
Did you forget the name to Jurassic Park?
It was a one-woman show, and she.
Oh, the Fringe Festival one. Okay.
Yeah, and she was wearing a dinosaur suit, and she talked about her brother, who. Is this a spoiler?
Well, I don't know if it doesn't play again next year. Technically, you can't spoil it. It's done.
The name of the show is okay. I remember now. It's Paleontology. As in, combining paleontology and paleoncology. And she says in the show, at some point, she says, this is the term for studying cancer in dinosaurs, right? Because oncology is cancer and
finding the oncogenes which promote and distribute the cancer throughout the body.
And I was thinking, that sounds made up, but I actually don't know. So maybe I'll look it up after the show. I
suppose
don't know.
If you could find enough samples of a species, you could determine the amount throughout for variation and guess which ones were the most likely to have cancer.
Yeah. Well, she was saying that they have indeed discovered dinosaur fossils with, but again, I don't know how much of this is true. It sounds true to me that they found dinosaur fossils with cancer, basically.
Or at least abnormal growth. It's a little hard to do a genetic test at this point for them.
Yeah. I think it's the signature of cancer or whatever. I think it's pretty straightforward. Well, as straightforward as science can be, which sometimes can be a bit complicated.
Straightforward as it is diagnosing a creature that's been dead for tens of millions of years.
Yeah. So her brother dies of cancer, and that's sort of what the show is about. Is about her coping with it. It was, and she's funny. She's it's not just a big downer. Her brother dies. It's a funny show.
But she's dressed up as a dinosaur, so it's it's kind of a downer, but it's ooh, fun downer, right?
Yeah, well, and it's that whole thing that you get with Fringe Festival. You get very kind of deep and things that touch you in weird ways. That kind of show. So yeah.
And then occasionally you get just a nice steampunk action.
And then there's also fun stuff.
I remember that from a few years back. My wife and I quite enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it deep, but it was definitely enjoyable.
But it's one of those things. Like I was talking about last week, I was talking about reading Slaughterhouse-5, and it was it's depressing, but it's also very it's extremely. I don't know. It's cutting. It's well written. It feels like when you read it, you feel like something's happening to you. I felt it a little bit similar with this paleontology.
You can't grow if you don't feel the growing pains.
Something like that.
In which case, the emotion that you get from reading a good story, or from watching a really good, well done play, that's the effect of growing pain.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. Yeah,
maybe I am poetic. Huh.
Yeah, and then I watched 2 more movies today. I don't know. I went on a binge. I'm watching movies, I guess.
Awesome.
I watched Waterworld and My Dinner with Andre.
So it's not your first time watching Waterworld, I take it?
It was actually.
Oh.
It was my first time, and I was like, because I didn't actually remember anything about Waterworld except that
the controversies, the money overruns
that it was
kept going up.
really expensive and it hardly made any money at all.
Well, compared to how much money they spent, although it would have, if they had if the budget had been properly modest for its age, it would have returned a decent investment. Okay. However, there was enough cost overruns to warrant tabloid exposure thereof, as well as a tainting of the movie because of it.
Okay.
And it was interesting because it was one of the first movies where the production of it and all the details coming out got so much press and publicity, you couldn't effectively see the movie without knowing about that beforehand, and that really does change the nature of the movie according to some critics.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know when it came out, like I can't remember
98?
now. It was, 98. So it was about the same era as what? As like Star Wars Episode 1? That?
A little bit before the Episode 1 stuff.
After Batman? Or like
after
the Tim Burton Batman?
Yeah, it was after the Tim Burton stuff. Around the same time the Schwarzenegger blockbusters were starting to finish off their arcs.
So yeah, there was a movie boom that sort of tailed off, and then after that sort of the independent. Or no, was it?
It was before the rise of the independent sort of thing. It was when the big blockbusters still owned the summers every year.
Something like, yeah.
And, then you wound up getting your small, like, found footage stuff, like the Blair Witch Project, and things started going other ways. And they realized, hey, we don't have to spend tens of millions of dollars to create, the big budget winner of the summer. And thus they did.
Yeah.
They're coming back to it now. I mean, the Expendables and all that. And Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't cheap to make, buddy. So they are realizing that, it was a good formula. But Waterworld marks where they started to realize things can get too big.
The high water mark or the low water mark. I don't know.
I wasn't going to make the joke, but there it is.
Well, yeah.
It's definitely a watermark for excess within the meta genre. Because it can really be any kind of movie, but the big budget, like summer blockbuster, I'm going to say is a meta genre.
Okay, yeah. Well, I got to say I really enjoyed it. The thing that prompted me downloading it. I paid for it, by the way.
Okay. It's a legal download, not like some people who shall remain nameless.
I got it through iTunes. But the thing that prompted me getting this. Watching this was the Hot Lava episode of Community that used to be on NBC. It's going to Yahoo this fall, and they did an episode of Hot Lava, and they sort of spoofed. I think it was some Waterworld, some Mad Max, some that whole.
And the good Mad Max, the second one, not the first Mad Max.
Well, it's sort of taking the ideas, yeah.
The first Mad Max is not bad. But it's definitely differently paced than most people are used to. So, that kind of bad.
Yeah.
So that way Mel Gibson won't come after me.
I'm not sure what... I was saying that particular episode of Community sort of took some of the ideas, not necessarily the whole,
the post-apocalyptic sort of style. The feather and leather, as they call it. Yeah,
so they have weird hair, and they have, just weird suits made out of stuff they found around the school and everything. So then I was like, well, I have to, I'm watching this piece of television that's an homage to earlier movies, and I have seen, I think, multiple Mad Maxes. Yeah. I've seen at least
I have
2, maybe 3.
The original one, thanks to 25 cents and a thrift store.
Yeah. So I was like, I have to see Waterworld is what I had to see. So I did, and I liked it. I thought it was really fun. I mean, it was flawed and it was stupid in a lot of places, but so is Star Wars. Then people forgive Star Wars for some reason.
The concept of that much water suddenly coming from the polar ice caps or something was a little ridiculous.
Yeah, it wouldn't cover the entire world.
Because that's the thing. I was thinking about it as it starts off. It's that's completely unrealistic. Now, if they had an issue whereby an ice comet of amazing size had wound up coming into like Earth orbit sort of thing and bombarded it with so much, of the water molecules that it effectively flooded the Earth before, like leaving because of orbital eccentricities. I would have bought that. You know what? That's all I need is a good enough excuse. But polar ice caps melted. Everything goes underwater.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I know if things flood, like, I might be out of a house, but I'm pretty sure Denver, the mile-high city, is still going to be safe.
Yeah.
At least from flooding. They're probably going to have to worry about tornadoes and all sorts of other altered weather phenomenon, but whatever.
Yeah, and then there's a little girl in the movie with a tattoo on her back. They never explain it. They just never.
In that case, I'm all right with those sorts of things.
Okay.
A back tattoo can have a lot of stories, and you leave it blank for how she got it. That way, you enhance it. That's a way for the viewer to enhance the movie. But, like, how did, like, all of society get so, like, deep underwater? Where did all this water come from? Ice caps melted is a poor answer. So you have to find that nice dividing line between, here's a good enough answer to make you go with it, versus you come up with your own answer.
Yeah. And the other thing is they never explain exactly how far in the future they are. They seem to say that it's centuries after, like, our time. But then they have all these artifacts. And they don't have any artifacts that are between then and now. So I'm not sure exactly how that came about, that the Earth just suddenly stops in 1990.
Well, so that's the thing is you can say that just because we kept on going before everything got flooded doesn't mean everything we get for relics is going to be from that final year. There are still people driving around out there in 1970s vehicles. If something was to happen like Super Vesuvius erupts and all of Earth gets coated in ash, doing a whole big Pompeii type thing, it's not going to be that they're only going to find 2014 vehicles everywhere. They're going to find the older stuff as well. So you got to think about like the concept of what relics you're going to have is how quickly the items break down versus how much time you have between now and flooding time.
I don't remember. Well, I'll have to watch the movie again. Maybe I don't remember that many artifacts from like the 50s or the the 20s. It's like almost everything is the 80s or the 90s. In that case,
that's the back end limit for where the artifacts are. Why you don't see any 50s stuff is because it just got replenished, or destroyed throughout natural processes.
Yeah, I suppose the Pepsi can could go back, like Pepsi was invented and what.
But that's the interesting thing about Pepsi is you can tell when it was based on its logo design. Pepsi has a different design.
I think it was an 80s or 90s Pepsi can, so yeah.
So
as far as I could tell, I
wouldn't mind seeing a really old sort of Pepsi style, or even like a Coke bottle. Well, of course not a Coke. If Pepsi's paying money for it, you're not going to see a Coke bottle in there. But, the old-fashioned Coke bottles, why? Well, that's what you use to keep water in, buddy. It's a useful artifact. Haha.
But, I will defend the movie now that I've sort of attacked it and said how unrealistic it was.
You attack it, you like it.
But I also will defend it in that it is a product of its age, and, it's made at a time, it's actually before global warming was sort of, it was made before I was aware of global warming because it was made in this era of 80s and 90s, I guess.
End of the 90s.
1990s. I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware of global warming.
At least they started working on the script back about mid-90s. I've been told it had a very long development cycle.
Yeah.
Another reason why it cost so darn much.
And it was pre, Al Gore's movie and Leonardo DiCaprio's movie and all these
although I do
2012.
believe it was after Earth Day started officially.
Uh-huh.
So there was some.
Yeah, I think global warming was out there. Yeah. But
it
I mean,
this mainline thing as you'll see in all the movies for this and that. It was one of the first movies that really brought it as this is a central plot point for why things are so shitty. And sorry to swear there, but it does concisely explain, the nature of the background plot.
Yeah. And what else? And there was a cool monster in it. Although, not enough cool monster. Like, I would have I guess maybe that's sort of part of the whole building of a world is that, oh yeah, this is a world where there's a giant shark and it shows up in like one scene and then it's gone.
I would have liked to have seen a bit where, like I remember the book After Man, where the concept is, okay, all of a sudden, like, mankind just disappears one day.
Mm-hmm.
And, what happens to, the animals as, they take over. It's an interesting visual exercise in the processes of evolution and adaptive radiation and all that sort of thing. And in it they have a creature called the vortex, which is the penguin after it learns to retain its egg. Because penguins really only spend, at least some species, really only spend time on the land to give birth to more penguins. And so if you have a penguin able to retain its egg in itself until it's time for the birth, then you really don't have a need to stay on land at all. And so you have these wonderful species that effectively take the place of the extinct whales and dolphin-type species as the penguins go into that sort of thing. And I would have liked to have seen something like that show its head up, sort of thing. It's like, oh yes, that's what happened to penguins in the future.
Yeah.
They're a fully aquatic species now.
Well, I think, like, if Waterworld had been managed a little better, I think it could have been an awesome trilogy. Like, it's one of those movies,
It did have all the earmarks of the start of a legacy project.
Yeah.
So, if they had managed their budget better.
Although,
if they had been a little harder on Kevin Costner so that he couldn't demand all this, that, and the other.
Another funny thing about it, though, was the bad guys are called smokers, or I guess they're, the bad guys. And they're literally just guys who smoke cigarettes. But they also have, like, gasoline machines and stuff, so I guess they're called smokers for that reason. But basically, the smokers
Where are they getting all the cigarettes from? Where are they getting the tobacco?
I don't know. I don't think it never.
Yeah,
it never shows. The cigarettes look like they're packaged again in 1990s era packaging. So, yeah.
I would have preferred to have seen them effectively, like with a seaweed off the back of their ship, like nicotine seaweed.
Oh yeah.
Which, hey, if you're a mad scientist planning on flooding the world, you might want to sweeten the deal for the survivors by saying, hey. You can at least have a smoke. I've got the nicotine seaweed, and I've got the wacky seaweed. Don't confuse the two. Have fun.
Well, yeah, it's funny because the main character, let's see, is this a spoiler? He lives. He doesn't
It's long
die.
enough. Don't worry.
The main character, I don't think he even has a name.
He's the Wanderer.
They never give him a... Well, he's a drifter,
is
like one of the things he is, but there's other drifters.
I just call him Gil.
Drifter or sailor? No, because sailor wouldn't. Because the sailor is.
Sailor needs a real ship. He's just got a raft.
He has a catamaran.
Yeah.
Or a trimaran, actually. Or
I just called him Gil whenever I needed to refer to him.
And he, it's sort of the implication at the end of the movie is that he goes on and he sort of starts a new life as a water-breathing creature, because he doesn't want to stay on the land with the people who find the land. Spoiler alert again, they find land at the end.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like the Himalayas or something weird like that, right? The highest part of the...
Well, they find Chinese writing, so there's that.
Chinese writing, high mountains, it's the Himalayas.
Yeah, they never say where it is.
Well, of course not. We don't have a map for that anymore.
Yeah. Oh, they also mentioned that the Earth's polarization switches, so all the compasses point...
North goes to south?
Yeah.
That is a thing people are thinking might be a real thing, but they're not 100% certain of.
Well, it is 100% certain, but it's just that it's going to happen in 20,000 years, so...
Yeah, the time scale thing is the issue.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it's going to happen in 20 years from now. It's getting ready. You can tell by how much the North Pole is moving this year.
Yeah, and the other thing is it actually won't affect us hardly at all, because the magnetic field will still be here. It'll just be the opposite polarity.
I will request a global map where everything is upside down, so that
they have those.
Yeah,
you can look those up on the internet.
I like seeing that. I do want to see, though, if that happens, I do want to see a proper map whereby South America becomes the proper North America, and Australia is in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah. Oh, we might not even use compasses at all, actually. It might all be GP, Global Positioning, GPS.
Yes. It was one of the other letters. So here's the thing, though. Okay. If the poles switch, one way to the other, what do we do for North America and South America? And, like, Central America? Because ideally, I guess Central America stays Central America. It's in the center, right? Mm-hmm. But North America is no longer north. It's in the south. Because the poles have flipped. Whereas South America is towards the north. Because the north is down where we used to call it south.
Well, except that magnets, isn't it that the north end of magnets point at what we call the North Pole? So technically it's magnetic south. Because if the north end of the magnets point to it,
But either which way we call it, when
south.
it flips, then the designation should change, right?
Well,
so are we going to call, or are we just going to replace it? Like, this is Alpha America and this is Beta America. And Central America, you can be Gamma America, because that sounds cool, and you guys are full badasses.
I think I would just leave it.
Are you sure you don't want Gamma America, in the center? I'm going to Costa Rica in Gamma America. Come on, tell me that doesn't sound like a better appeal than just in Central America. I'm going to Costa Rica.
Gamma America. I want something, maybe a better name, but, like, I don't want them all to be America. That's the thing.
So they get a chance to rename themselves as they so see fit.
Yeah. Like, couldn't we be Laurentia again? That was a different continent, wasn't it, back in the day? So, but maybe Laurentiland or something like. And in Central America, Maztica, like in
New Viking Land.
New Viking Land.
Well, the Vikings found the place first.
Okay,
although there is some evidence that suggests some isolated sailors from China may have found the place. Never on purpose, and they weren't able to get back. So does that count? I don't know. Half points?
I don't think that evidence is real, but
it's suspicious evidence, and there's no real thing proving that they ever could get back. So I don't know if that qualifies as discover or got shipwrecked there. So any which way you slice it, it's not as good as the Vikings were able to get there, come back, and start doing a trading route.
Although, I mean, in theory, I mean, the people who came over the land bridge, that was sort of China-ish, I guess. I mean, in the original migrations from as far south as possibly like Mongolia and stuff. Yeah, but I don't think they had any
proper name for it. They were just following the animals.
Yeah. So I know they probably had a name for that. I mean, they would have had language and culture, and they would have, had like huts that they build and stuff and stories.
Yeah, but at what point do they start naming the land a new spot to a new spot to a new spot?
Good question. I wonder. Like, I do wonder. I think they may have. They may have been like, well, that was old land, like with, yellow trees, and this is new land with.
This is what
green
we call
trees.
swampy land, because it's like some sort of like land bridge, but it's really shallow and kind of swampy.
Yeah, but they could have.
But for the animals, though, they seem to like it, so we'll follow and kill them.
Yeah, and yes, they followed the animals, but they could have had scouts or stuff. I guess they didn't have horses, so it's harder. But they could have still had like people.
Well, eventually they
sort of explored.
I've been told horses went the other way as people were going the one way.
Yeah, but they didn't have domesticated horses.
No. I bet you they were one of the first people to eat a horse, though. That's going to count for, like, points, right?
Okay.
First human to eat a horse. Yeah.
All right, so I watched Waterworld. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm happy that you liked it, because when I saw it in the big theater, there was no way to not see it as being a flop because of the cost overruns. Mm-hmm. And there were spots I liked, spots I didn't like. Like, the science behind it was horrible, but the movie itself was generally entertaining enough, and all I really ask for is an entertaining enough movie. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to know that with the passage of time, it has aged better. So I guess there's like a cheese that way. It starts off fresh and it's not that good, but when it ages, it actually gets better.
Well, as long as you see it as a piece of something that people made, like that's how I always like to watch movies and everything is, like these people, like they were of their time and they made a movie that they thought was going to be really awesome. They used the blockbuster formula, and for some reason it stopped working, but that formula, works in a lot of other cases.
It stopped working because of publicity.
But it's still it's a decent story.
Do you
It's
think
put together.
30, 40, 50 years from now, people will be using it as an example for, like a turning point in this age of movie cinema stuff?
I don't know if they'll use Waterworld, because that's the thing. Like
it did get a lot of press and publicity, and I think that'll wind up becoming a haunting legacy for it.
I think the thing about it though was that the market was saturated with big movies like this. I think that's part of why. So it's among a class of movies. So I guess
the meta genre, as I've coined
as you
it.
said before. Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Because I watched a movie this week.
Okay. Go ahead.
I occasionally like to spin and win through the cable package I have. Usually it's basic cable, but every once in a while they give me, like, for a month, a free channel. And last month it happened to be Discovery Science, so I got a chance to watch Mythbusters and I had fun there. But this last month, as I've learned this week, I don't know when the month officially switches over, but I've got it for now. I got Teletoon, with all its wonderful shows and programmings and all that sort of weird stuff. And I got a chance to see a movie in the new 52 universe for DC Comics, and it was Justice League War. And the premise is a bunch of superheroes team up when Earth is under attack, and then at the end they realize that it's kind of nice to be around people that get them, and have kind of like a friendship that way, because otherwise they're all really alone. And so they form the Justice League at the end, and that's kind of what it is. And I gotta say, I'm a little torn between the thing, because I found it unnecessarily violent. The personalities just didn't seem right. But some of them were really well done, and it was wonderfully animated. Like, Superman was a bit of a jerk. Instead of, you can't hurt me, so why don't we talk this over, he's ready to throw down and fight people. The Green Lantern was just an absolute goofus of a jock sort of guy. Just always trying to play by his own rules and just completely overestimating his abilities and getting thwomped back and time and again and again. It was almost like a running joke that was just like, no, lay down. Just stop it. Okay, good. Batman was very well done. I think they did a good job for Cyborg, because they've been trying to promote Cyborg as not just like a Teen Titans thing. He should be up with the big head honchos. And I think they did very well by him. He was a little morose, but this was his tragic origin story. So I think he has a right to be a little sad when, his origin involves traumatic amputation. Something blows up, there goes an arm and a leg. You have the right to be a little bitter and a little angry. Wonder Woman was done very well, but altogether it got me as being like, these aren't the characters I know and grew up with. It just doesn't seem right. And I grew up with like an era where I could get a hold of Silver Age Superman comics where he was quite the dick. For lack of any better term, Superman did some really horrible things for his friends just to teach them a lesson. And this didn't seem like the right Superman to me. So I found that to be a little odd.
Okay.
There's one bit in particular. Spoiler alert, it's Darkseid. Unspoiler alert, if the planet Earth is attacked, it's usually Darkseid. There's about a 50% chance it's him. Sometimes it's aliens from here, sometimes it's Thanagarians, sometimes it's, other people. Half the time it's Darkseid from Planet Apocalypse. There you go. But Superman gets captured because he gets hit by, those Omega beams. Have you ever seen much for the Omega beams?
No, I haven't.
Darkseid has wonderfully awesome evil beams that come from his eye. And they don't go in straight lines. They take like 90 degree and then some corners and turns. And they're pretty darn powerful. So they managed to drop even Superman. And so with Superman out of the way, like, oh no, we're minus our heavy hitter. So what's their plan? And their plan is like, well, those Omega beams really, really suck. The Flash gets winded trying to outrun them. And if you, interpose enough bad guys, because, Darkseid's got minions aplenty, you put enough of those guys in between, eventually you'll wear out the beam and it stops. But it's pretty hard even for, the Flash. And if he doesn't target the Flash, no one else can really outrun it. It hurts. It's really painful. Sometimes it causes you to go back in time, as Batman learned in the comics a little ways back. So they come up with a plan, like, we got to poke out both his eyes. And I'm like, well, I suppose that there's a logic sense in there, but you guys are supposed to be heroes. You're really supposed to be talking about piercing other people's eyes? And so they got to set up a whole thing whereby they can distract Darkseid enough that Wonder Woman can pierce his eye out, because she's got a sword. She's not just Wonder Woman with a lasso here. She has the sword of Hephaestus, which, depending on the writer, can sometimes be sharp enough to cleave molecules into various atoms. It's sharp. And so, yeah, when that pierces the eye, I guess that makes sense. But then she loses her sword and all that, and they have one chance to get it again, and only the Flash is, the person that's, not, distracting him with all this stuff. So he rushes off, gets himself a crowbar, runs up along the way, pierces his other eye out with a crowbar. And it suddenly occurred to me, it's like, no, I don't like this at all. One, he's Darkseid, an evil god created by Jack Kirby, and he's taken a heck of a lot of abuse. Why is a mundane crowbar, wielded by a person with, although he does have super speed, does not have super strength, why is that piercing his evil deity eye?
Okay.
I don't get that. And also, this is the Flash. This isn't like some ultra new, edgier Flash. This is the same Flash that ran himself to death in the Crisis series back in 1984. He was such a hero. He ran himself into bone and ash, destroying a part of the evil Anti-Monitor's machinery. Like what's he doing? Popping eyeballs out with a crowbar. It just didn't seem right to me. It seemed like the people took the characters and just didn't have the right hold on them. Batman's easy to get. I'm brooding and I have a plan, blah, blah, blah. And then, whatever he does, it's like, oh, I planned for it all along. That's how you do Batman. And by and large, it's kind of easy to do. Maybe that's why the movies of him always turn out so well.
Okay.
He's easy enough character to write. Superman's harder. Like, when I watched Superman in the Justice League War, I did not get the sense of the quiet nobility Superman has. Superman has this thing about him whereby, I'm a nice guy. You can't hurt me, so let's all just try and do this the right way so that I don't have to hurt you. And that's kind of the air he has about himself. He doesn't always say that sort of thing, but by and large, he's Superman. He's invulnerable. Please don't try what you're doing. It's not going to work. Can we talk this through properly? Is his first motive of plans. No, in this case, he doesn't quite like what they're doing, and he's in the middle of a fight, so he's going to start fighting them back. Now, mind you, maybe it was a little bit of the Green Lantern's fault. He goes in there like a hothead, and they've got alien weird technology, and this guy Superman, he's an alien too. Maybe he's a part of it. But no, Superman does not try and escalate things. Superman just stops it and tries to end it with a minimal amount of property damage, because he's Superman. Property damage comes with misuse of any of his powers, really. But I did not get that sense of nobility about him. He seemed kind of like a punk. Kind of like an angry, vigilante sort of thing. He didn't seem like intrinsically, you see Superman and anything he does, he should have I am a hero. I am the standard by which heroes are set, sort of style to
Let me ask you this. Did it feel like he could have done something else? Like he had other options?
When the Green Lantern's attacking him with various other stuff, yeah, he can just stand there, take it, and say no.
Okay.
He sees like Batman there. You could just try talking to him instead of laser beaming away what his bat grappling gun latched onto. Wherever Batman zips himself off to, Superman can fly fast enough to be there. He can start trying to talk with Batman no matter how far away he tries to get. Batman can't move fast enough to escape Superman's flight.
Okay.
So the concept of him okay, I'm tired of this sort of thing, so instead of letting you just fly away or being there wherever you grapple up to, I'm going to laser heat beam that part of the building you're on away. It didn't seem right. It seemed like just a gratuitous use of power.
Do you think it wasn't the real Superman?
It was the real Superman. Unfortunately, it was the DC New 52 Superman who's got a thing going on about that sort of thing. He's just more use of power whenever he wants to, as opposed to try not to use any more power than absolutely necessary.
Okay, so they did change the character a little bit.
I think some of the core principles are, like, if you go far enough back to like Superman's first couple stories. I had an opportunity in some of the anthologies to read some of his first stories. He would do stuff like, you know, breaking entry, smashing walls, spanking, you know, bad bankers, and, you know, just ripping open bank vaults, sort of thing. What the average person would do if he had Superman level powers. But I like that Superman has matured beyond that. Superman is about, let's see, how did they phrase it in the cartoon series? The world of cardboard he lives in. Anything he does, anywhere he moves, he has to be very careful to make sure he doesn't hurt and absolutely crush everything around him. He's living in a world of cardboard.
Yeah.
And that's the Superman I like, the person who has that power but has, you know, enough core personality to not, use it wherever. He's got that, like, the best use of power is the non-use of power, unless you need to. I
like that as an allegory for, like,
anybody with power.
Our modern world where we, like, a person can own a gun, and, you know, a gun can take a life, right? So I think that works. Whereas the Superman who just lashes out, it's like, you know, somebody, like a teenager who has nothing, just...
I suppose you could see it's like that episode where Homer Simpson gets a gun, and what's he doing? He's firing the gun to try and change the channel on the TV. Or he wants to turn off the lights, you know, he fires, you know, the gun at that. That's the abuse of power. And so I guess in this case, the Superman I saw in Justice League War was a little too Homer Simpson-y for me. Just a little Homer Simpson-y, but still a little Homer Simpson with that amount of power is not good. I don't like the concept.
Has there been a superhero that's more Homer? I guess the Tick is kind of Homer Simpson-like.
The Tick is a very good example of that. Yes.
Maybe the Tick is almost too, like, even who's stupider, the Tick or Homer Simpson?
Homer Simpson, but the Tick is blindly naive.
Okay.
Homer would more likely see the reality of a situation, whereas the Tick would see it through his Tick-colored glasses of superheroes versus villainy.
Okay.
So
that's a crossover I want to see.
Homer, you know what? I actually wouldn't mind reading that. But that actually brings me to the other thing I was doing this week.
Okay, go ahead.
I found a nice little Twitter stream called...
so you're getting involved in Twitter a bit.
A little bit.
Do you have your own account yet?
No, not yet. I'm just reading through some fun stuff. This was I guess for lack of a better term, cream of the crap. It's called fanfiction_TXT, where the guy goes through all the fan fiction posted up online that he can find. He finds the worst of it, and he finds the worst part of that, and then he, in like 140 characters, and then, only edited for space. That's all he ever does to change it, and then he puts that up, and that's his thing. Or her thing. I don't know. I can't get a gender behind somebody quoting another person.
Okay.
But I gotta say this, I do like the concepts that some of these people were coming up with. Not all of them, mind you, but some of them. I saw Hank Hill go Super Saiyan, which got animated through an animated GIF or GIF, however you want to pronounce it. And that was kind of groovy. The concept of the Berenstein Bears in Left 4 Dead, well, that's very imaginative. I applaud that level of imagination. But let's see. Oh my goodness, the abuses of spelling, punctuation, grammar, voice, just the complete lack of proper voice for people. And that's the one unifying theme I've noticed with what I went through this week was there was a surprising amount of Sonic fan fiction quotes in there. Where it didn't sound like the characters. It was just like, this person says it to advance the plot. And I will admit, some of the stuff I did when I was young would likely sound, and it would ring true in the same way in my ears now. So maybe, I cut the people some slack. Maybe it's like an 11, 12-year-old writing it. But I do think that's something as I noticed, I really want to make sure when I'm doing my writing, everybody has a proper voice, and everyone has a distinct voice and style. That way, when somebody puts, you put Sonic the Hedgehog in this scene, you'll know what he says if you know the voice properly. So if whatever characters I wind up creating for whatever stories I want to tell, I want to double check and make sure each one has their own voice so that a person can say, yes, you put character A in the situation, you should be able to say with good accuracy how it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that as a concept. Furthermore, reading all this bad stuff made me feel so much better about my writing skills.
Oh, great.
It's like, wow, I might not have a lot of faith in how well I write when I do write, but I can do better than that.
Cool.
I can do a lot better. It actually made me want to write more this week.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's like, well, it's interesting when you read the really bad stuff. Like, if you ever get the chance, anyone out there, try and find The Eye of Argon. Considered one of the best bad fictions ever written.
Okay.
Because you'll read it and you'll say to yourself, it's like, you know what? I can do so much better than that. It doesn't matter what I produce now. It will not be that bad. And it's like a weight off of your shoulders, and all of a sudden you're free to rise and do your own thing. It's just a mental like beauty to it, I believe. So, and if you ever get like a bit of writer's block, if you ever think what you're writing is crud, find this sort of fan fiction. Find, the Twitter feed that collects the worst of the worst and puts it out there, and then you'll realize, no matter how bad I'm beating myself up, I know my stuff is better than this. And then you're free, and it's just like, So that's kind of an interesting concept for this week.
Cool.
But one final thing, and that's going to wind up segging into, I guess, our main topic for the night.
Sure, yeah. One other thing you did.
Well, I know, as I said in some of the previous iterations, I wrote up Inspector Gadget on
in TriStat.
In the TriStat system. Because, well, the TriStat system is a, air quotes, dead system. White Wolf owns it, but they're not doing anything, and the company that originally created it went belly up more than a couple of years ago. I'm old. It went belly up a long time ago. But, so it's just my playground to play with. And so I'm thinking, well, as I learned, Inspector Gadget's got a lot of power, more power than I ever learned. And I'm still watching through the episodes as I can. Just to see, and I gotta say, my wife finds it quite funny. And I'll be watching it, and then she'll be looking at me there, and I was like, "Oh, okay, you can do this."
You're writing something down, taking notes for the cartoon.
Well, it's an interesting thing is I'd always assumed, Gadget, go Gadget, but his jacket that inflates up, and then something always punctures his jacket. He falls down again. Mm-hmm. And it's like, very nice, yes. And then, I was looking at this one where he goes floating up, and it's two ancient tribes in like the Balkans or whatever, and somebody, bow and arrow, he deflates, and then later on, he does it again. He inflates his jacket up. So I learned to God, take a note. He can use his jacket after taking it, damage or thing. So if I was to put it in the TriStat system properly, any damage would automatically negate his gadget coat ability, but I wouldn't have it so that if he's damaged at all, he can't use it. It's something that can be done again and again, apparently.
Yeah, so I don't know does he just apply a patch off screen or something?
Apparently,
probably.
I do recall one episode happening in France where he kept having to get a new coat because the old one was shredded. In which case, it was like long shreds. So maybe if it's a small puncture sort of thing, you can just say he's got a patch for it, and he does that.
Or it might even be an automatic patch kit or something like that. Yeah. A little hand comes out his
He's got 4
hat?
extra hands in his hat. So, as he's going from one place to another, I mean, the hands coming out of his head do seem smarter than he is. So maybe they're the ones properly patching it up. Maybe his suit just has you got that stuff for the tires. You put it in there, and it automatically patches up the tire and all that.
Yep.
Maybe his jacket, once it deflates, it's got like that, like bio-resin or whatever weird stuff you want to use for it, and it patches itself up. But, of course, you take even a single point damage, down you go again. So,
piercing, or is there a distinction? Like, because if you get hit by something blunt...
I think if someone throws a rock at him, he should be knocked around in circles in a hilarious manner, but I don't think he'll deflate. That said, I've seen birds flying by that pierce it and just, incidentally. So this is a very low damage threshold sort of thing.
Yeah, true.
So I'm going to have to go back and update the stuff as I learn the little bits and, the minutiae of his gadget suit. But as I'm thinking about the stuff, it's like, well, this is interesting. Learning the power level. Gadget is a seriously powerful person. The hardware is powerful. The software is cripples the entire operating system, if you can get my gist, right? And so I'm thinking, well, what other characters are seen largely as a joke, but might have power? So I'm looking around. It's like, well, Bender, from Futurama's got a good amount, so I'll put him on a list there. And, No Heart from the Care Bears. He was a scary enough villain. They really had to try. They switched back. They were afraid of him. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, he's showing up, whatever, we'll win the day. No, this was not a guarantee in their mind. So I like the concept of him. How much power does he really have? Maybe this works the opposite way. So I got him on a list. And then it occurs to me, you know who probably has a decent amount of power but is never being taken seriously by anyone in his own fandom? Mortal Kombat's Johnny Cage. He's one of the original characters in the series. He's, he apparently died for a while. He got better, though. You can do that in the Mortal Kombat series. You can die and come back.
I would hope so, because otherwise there wouldn't be any fighters left.
Well, that's the thing. A few of them were dead to begin with. One was a god, so I don't think he counts. And not all the fights are to the death. It's just you beat the person unconscious sort of thing. Not that that's much better, I guess, in the long term. If you beat someone unconscious, there's some long-term health issues to be worried about.
Yeah, and that comes up in boxing from time to time.
Which is going to be interesting, because the next Mortal Kombat game is coming out, and which takes place like 35 years or whatever later. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see maybe a punch-drunk 65-year-old Johnny Cage.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking up, there's a wiki for all the Mortal Kombat characters, and I was doing a lot of reading. Because I enjoy reading about this stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, oh boy, all of Johnny Cage's moves, I could actually stat this up very nicely. It'd be quite easy for me to do. This is good research area.
Okay, yeah, you can fit him into TriStat.
And then it occurs to me, it's like, well, wait a minute, why would I put him into TriStat? He wouldn't really work as a role-playing character, because, the Mortal Kombat series is really just about the fighting. Whereas anyone who's managed to pick up the Player's Handbook for the 5th edition, it does state very nicely that there are 3 pillars of role-playing. You have your combat, you have your exploration, and you have your interaction. Mm-hmm. Which, mind you, sometimes it weighs one to the other. Your interaction is selling your goods off to the person between the hack and slash scenario sometimes. But, and then it occurs to me, Mortal Kombat's really just that one pillar of fight. There's a little plot in there, but it really doesn't have any. There's no you get to talk to this person, in between fights. You build alliances.
Yeah, well, more it's a fighting game. You fight, and that's the game. The game is about the fight. It's not about anything else.
It occurs to me because I played the SSX Tricky back in the game. I loved that game. I loved the music. And there was a thing whereby you could screw people over in the game. It's like you cut the person off, you force them to crash, or you wipe them out just before you get to the finish line, so you get first and they wind up getting last, and that'll decrease their relationship with you, sort of thing. You can't actually bring it up higher than its basic amount, but there are favored people and versus enemies and all that, and that's about as much as they get. But at least it's something. There's no bit where you can humiliate, you are a Scorpion and you can wind up humiliating Johnny Cage, and that way he's got it out for you. So if you ever encounter him again, he's really gonna mess you up, man, because he's coming in from an anger perspective. He's got the combat rage going for him.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's missing from Mortal Kombat, but
it's just not there. Is what it is.
Doesn't have a bit more social interaction, yeah.
And so I got to thinking, well, there's not much. I know of the personality of Johnny Cage. I've seen the movie. I love the movie. I love the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I love all sorts of music, apparently. But that's the only time I've seen him have a personality. Otherwise, when he's in combat, he's pretty much the same as anyone else, just with different moves. So it occurs to me well, this is an interesting role-playing opportunity. I could put the stats up for him and then see who actually role-plays him versus whoever just tries to take him into the next fight and try and beat up whoever it is in this imaginary TriStat gaming future of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bit that got to me. It's well, now I want to watch some of the Mortal Kombat games and, as the fight goes, and see if I can build up a role-playing bit around that.
Well, there was a movie. And there are Mortal Kombat novels.
A couple movies, a TV series, a comic series, a cartoon.
So it's not like the
Live
character
action
doesn't have a
series,
bit of
maybe?
background and backstory that you can sort of build a character
But you have
around.
to go out in search of that. It's not just readily available for you throughout the
It's
game.
not. Yeah, it's not in the game itself, right?
Although I suppose if you beat the game with him, it does tell you what he likes to do. Because at the end of the first Mortal Kombat game, if you won with him, he realizes the importance of fighting. You know, like as opposed to just like trying to prove himself as an actor who's not just reliant on special effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he goes back to Hollywood and he stars in the Mortal Kombat series of movies, which was funny because back then there was no plans for the movie. And that's about as much as it gets for him for a personality or plot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's not a lot to work with if you're just playing the games, and which is the core source of people's interaction with him in most cases. Unless you know of the game, you're probably not going to go out and search of the movie or the comics or the cartoon series or the live action series. It's likely going to be your first interaction. Maybe your only interaction is through the fighting game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
And so.
Well, I don't get it. Like if you're seeking out,
It's like, I love Mortal Kombat, man. But there's 3 movies. There's a cartoon series. There's a live action series.
But this is what I don't understand. You're sort of assuming that like an imaginary person would seek out the role playing character without necessarily seeking out the other elements of culture in which he has appeared, like the films and.
Well, that's the thing is I would imagine that the average person only really encounters him through the fighting game.
Yeah, but does the average person have this urge that you're talking about of like, oh, now I want to put them in a role-playing game?
Probably not. I'm a little weird that way.
Yeah,
but
I
mean, there are going to be people out there who wonder, like, what the heck is up with this guy? This man over here is a demon. He rips his face off and like ignites people on fire. This guy freezes someone. This guy's got like electroshock stuff. Have you seen the teeth on this person here? I don't know what's up with her. She's wearing a battle bikini. And what's up with this guy? He's got himself, he's like a regular human being. What is this guy's story? He's surrounded by all these weirdos, and he's the one normal guy. I want to learn his story. There's got to be people out there, and those are the ones who go out and they find the movie and the comics and the cartoon and the live action series and everything else that is where he actually has a personality. But without that seeking out, you're not going to see any personality about him. So I was wondering, like, why am I even statting him up for a role-playing game or any role-playing system when, like, the average person is only going to know him for his fighting move, whereby he does the splits and punches somebody in the groin. Mm-hmm. That's his one thing that everyone seems to remember. They even put it in the movie. It was hilarious. But yeah, so it got me thinking about it's like, well, that's just me. I mean, I add role-playing elements to all sorts of games just by reflex. I am the kind of guy who would play a fighting game and wind up, coming up with backstories like, why am I beating the crud out of this person? Come up with a reason as I'm fighting them.
Yeah, well, and I'm into this because I like the thought of, and I guess this is sort of a weird thing to do, but yeah, just adding whenever you're playing a game of any kind is like just thinking like, yeah, who am I, this person, and what will I do, and sort of taking on a personality almost.
Like in a previous iteration, I mentioned like when I play zombies, if we're not fighting against each other, we're all trying to work as a cooperative thing. I want to be the blue player. I've got in my mind like a character, Cobalt Blue Steel. Kobe Steele is his name.
Okay, yeah.
And he's been in a few of these zombie apocalypse situations, but he's a good man, a staunch friend and an ally. And if we're all working together, he will be there and he will help get everyone to that helipad on the same turn. Mm-hmm. And so, despite the fact there's no role playing in it, I just intrinsically come up with a character, a motive, a personality, and even a style. And so he's more likely to go with other people in the area. It's like, okay, you only got 2 hearts out of 5. I'm doing pretty well. I even got some bullets. I'll clean out the zombies here. You get the stuff, and that way we'll both be at pretty good health. As opposed to, like, I steal everything, and I leave you to all the zombies. Ha, ha, ha. Mm-hmm. So I role-play the game up. When I'm playing Risk, depending on the color of the character, whatever army it is I come up with a motif. Black is the undead. Green would be like living biomass plants, like swamp things going up to take back the earth from the industrial people.
Okay.
And, like red, maybe sometimes when I'm red, I want to play, I am the neo-communist. Sometimes I am the vampires.
The red commies, yeah, red army.
It's a thing, and all that. Haven't got a chance to see who the pink is yet. Maybe they're genetic freaks sort of thing, like pig people. I don't know. Haven't got a chance to play them. I'll have to find out as I go.
Yeah, pig people. Maybe pink ponies, pink unicorns.
I don't know. I might have to take 2 or 3 bright colors together and just make them for the unicorn thing that way. But yeah, I mean, do you find yourself doing anything like that there, Josh?
Yeah, kind of. And, well, I mean, in some ways I wish I did it more when you play games and stuff. So I always try, actually, like, I don't know if this is something everybody should do, but I always try to think a little bit of the role. And yeah, I guess we've talked about this in games before, because I like to have a story behind the game. I like to have a motivation.
It does invest me a lot more that way. I would feel sad if Kobe Steele actually dies in a game of zombies. He hasn't done it yet. He's made several maps where he hasn't died. Hasn't died once since I started the concept of him in my mind. So if he actually, dies in that sort of game, I will actually be legitimately saddened.
I remember one game, like, in particular, Magic the Gathering, made more sense to me, like, because when I first learned the game, it's like, oh, play this card, just turn the cards over and play them on the table and just do that and flip them or whatever. And that was like, okay, this is kind of a fun game. It's a little interesting. But then after I learned and after I started, I
became proficient.
Yeah, I bought a few sets and I had some decks and stuff. Then I started learning that, okay, there's a bit of a lore to this, and your role is actually, you are supposed to be some kind of wizard or some kind of planeswalker or whatever.
I do have the old rule book around here somewhere that's got the bit of fiction that Richard Garfield himself wrote for what a planeswalker duel is supposed to be like.
Yeah. Well, actually, I should probably get that off you because, Magic the Gathering is a game that I think most people start out playing without reading the backstory. Wow. Yeah, without getting that sort of, what's my motivation? It's just, no, you just play the cards. And I think that's similar for it, because it's a fighting game. It's like a versus, one versus another. It's similar to Mortal Kombat in that way, in that the game is the contest. The game is the competition between two roughly equally matched opponents, and you find out which one's better.
But in this case, because you can change and select your deck style up, you have a lot more personality intrinsically going into it. So you can say, like, you know what? Demons and vampires are awesome. I'm doing a mono-black demon vampire deck. Woo-ha-ha-ha-ha.
Yep, yeah. And then you almost like... I mean, people don't have to role play from that, but you're almost driven into a role, right?
Some character, I mean, like, especially with stuff like slivers, they establish a character style for themselves. So the more slivers you have in your deck, the more powerful all your slivers become. And it's like, well, why do I have these grizzly bears in my deck when I can replace them for an equal cost sliver? And so, yeah, it does bring you into a more motif style, which is intentional in that case.
I think so, yeah. I think Magic does a good job of, it's there to be had if you look for it, but it's also like, you could just play the game. Like, you could just get away with just having the cards.
Buy just enough to get the 60 cards and just kind of mush them off as best you can.
Well, no, even not that. You can even be really proficient at the game and really sort of study decks and approach it from a very mechanical point of view and just saying this is the deck that works and put together cards that work together and not necessarily have a personality to it. I mean, other people... I
don't know, man.
What do you think?
I'm still saddened that I did not buy my friend's Zombie Thrall deck back in the day because I loved to play that deck during lunch back in high school. Which is a very long time ago now that I think about it, and those cards are probably worth a very tidy sum.
How old is Magic? 20 years old? 21 years old?
I think it came out in 95, so it is...
19?
95, 2005, 20... Just about 20, if not, getting around 2 decades.
Oh, okay.
Which is weird when you think about it. I mean, my goodness, that's a long-lasting card game.
Yeah.
No wonder some of the alpha stuff is worth so much. It's 20 years of wear and tear on some of those cards. But yeah, I really do intrinsically prefer the style deck. Like, even if my zombie thrall deck didn't win, I had a lot of fun sending out black little minions against everyone.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean that's you. That's you like the personality of the evil. Like
Well, I actually like the green a lot too.
Uh-huh.
The whole nature overwhelming. Like red of tooth and claw, but green in color.
Green
and mana. Although
Yeah.
some of the more recent stuff, because back and forth, it was really hard to do a dual triple color deck, but now it's a lot easier. So, yeah, I could do like a red green sort of rather vicious sort of style.
Red, green, black.
Although, you know what, I find my personal predilections go more towards the white blue combo these days.
Okay.
Very scholarly and civilized sort of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes a fun card and a good theme is a fun card and a good theme. Zombies and thralls, black weenies for everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that case, I do like your analogy between the two, in that you can learn the basic, fighting stuff, and then get in for the lore and the fluff in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I just like the concept of, because I think 5th edition has stated it so wonderful, the 3 pillars of a role
D&D.
playing game.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, what were the? Yeah.
The fighting, the interaction, and the exploration.
Yeah. Although, well, in some ways, fighting is just a kind of interaction.
It's a very hostile interaction, whereby instead of getting a 5% deal, the town guard is now on your arse. Interactions with a blacksmith should not be like interactions with the goblins, unless you are in a very vicious campaign.
Well, actually,
I'll only make your things if you beat me up first.
I mean, I always say, and I say this, I should put my money where my mouth is and actually run a good campaign like this, but I always sort of think that the goblins should act a little bit more like they have motivations just like the blacksmith. Like, in theory, you could negotiate with them. And
can I wrestle the blacksmith in submission for a reduction on the cost of the items he makes?
Well, yes. And
dig it.
Depending on the size of the town, you might have some authorities asking questions, but
I
go ahead
will
and
wrestle them.
try and attempt to wrestle them. And
I ain't going to use my weapon. It's going to be a wrestle to submission type thing.
The thing is, if you wrestle about 2 to 3 people at a time, do about 13 of those in a row before you take on the next level, and then you can sort of wrestle through the entire kingdom until
I finally get the king in a headlock.
Yeah. Although maybe Emperor, actually, at that level. So, yeah, because if you're level 20...
His dad's the Emperor. All right, Emperor, I'm giving your son a noogie in the headlock until you come and fight me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Emperor shows up, just a loincloth, and he's got the body oil plus 5 of slipperiness. He is a tough challenge indeed. You're not the first adventurer he's faced. He knows the rules. Dun-dun-dun. I actually really like this campaign concept right now. A very brutal land.
I like that it's
nonsensical.
I like that it's all wrestling too. There's no no weapons or anything. I mean,
weapons are for against the goblins and for the other stuff when you're out there. You're in town, you're civilized, you do wrestling proper.
Yeah. They have. I was trying to think. In Mortal Kombat, they do have weapons, right?
Oh yes, a number of them have some very vicious weapons. Some intrinsic. The Baraka. Oh god, my brother Adam loved Baraka back in Mortal Kombat 2. He had like Wolverine sort of spikes come out and slash.
Yeah, they came out of his arm, right? Like bone claws
really
or something.
Long. I have no idea where the heck he stored. They were longer than his forearm, but arms outstretched, huge blades coming out.
Yeah.
Bio bone blades or whatever.
Some characters fight unarmed, like Johnny Cage, right?
Yeah, I believe in some.
And Liu Kang fights.
Liu Kang has had weapons as well. One of the other.
Or does he have like nunchucks
guy,
or something?
I could double check if you want, but I believe all of them have had at least some weapon stuff. Okay. Scorpion most notable with his little. What was it? Like a little dagger sort of thing on a rope. Get over here!
Yeah, or a chain or something.
Yeah. I think it changed sometimes. Sometimes it was a chain, sometimes it was a rope, sometimes it was from his arm, sometimes it was hooked on the belt, and in the movie it was an intelligent serpent-like creature.
Okay.
But by and large, it was awesome. No matter which way you did it was awesome. And
well, he's
get
like
over here was really sweet.
He's like a demon, right? Or some.
He is actually a wraith. a spirit that was once a human, but is now continuing to go on through the spirit of vengeance.
Yeah, so his tools could be a little bit supernatural.
Apparently in the next Mortal Kombat they will be. They're doing an interesting thing with different styles. So you can have him fighting with weapons, him fighting using his Hellfire stuff, and a third option sort of style.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually a little bit curious how they came up with the rules for the what weapons you're allowed.
I think it's based on the martial arts style each one was using, because they have.
So you're allowed whatever weapon you happen to bring.
For the Mortal Kombat actual fights, apparently yes.
And how come nobody's dressed in a full plate armor?
For the ladies, there's some obvious reasons for that. It's sexist, but it's obvious.
Okay.
Also, gameplay, I suppose.
I guess Sub-Zero kind of has some thick plates, but it's not full plate.
No, it's good armor, but I don't think that actually changes how much damage he takes from a hit.
It's partially samurai armor, but it's not.
It's much better than the battle bikinis a lot of the ladies wear, but they still take the same amount of damage from a hit.
Yeah, a bunch of the dudes are shirtless.
Johnny Cage is just wearing a pair of pants and glasses.
Yeah.
And they're not even proper fighting glasses. They are Hollywood sunshade glasses.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I don't know why he's trying to fight in that, but whatever. But, it doesn't actually impact how much damage you take when the move is performed against you. So I guess if that's how it's going to wind up being, that damage X is damage X no matter what you're wearing, why bother wearing this heavy plate stuff?
Well, that's okay. Yeah, if we're talking about if we're gonna metagame it, yeah.
Which, although I gotta say, if they're changing up the styles, you can be a different kind of thing, a style motif. And they do have alternate costumes as an established thing. You could make it so that the character's light armor, moderate armor versus heavy armor type style design, and helps impact the speed at which you move. So you can be I'm Scorpion with the Hellfire, so I want to do a real fast thing. So he's got the light armor. Versus I'm, the Scorpion as the samurai, ninja type thing. So I've got heavier armor on, and I've got regular weapons. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could really dig that. That would at least make an excuse for, oh yes, that's why she's wearing 2 strips of cloth for her entire outfit. It's a light armor style. You don't like it? Switch to the heavier outfit. You move a little slower, though. It's heavier armor. It's a reason, and all I ask for is a reason I can, say good enough. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and that would allow for some role-playing style in there, because that way, if you want to be Scorpion, you could play Scorpion as the wrathful vengeance spirit that's out to try and destroy all the descendants of the people that killed his clan and his family. Mm-hmm. You could play him as the proper samurai sort of thing, as the guy who's trying to redeem himself as a person and not become this hell-bound demon spirit. And so that way, I see a lot of potential for adding the role play into there based on I want to play him this style, this way. And hey, thumbs up on that one, man.
What do you think of headcanon for movies? Like when I was watching Waterworld,
I established a lot of headcanon to make the movies work a lot more palatable.
Because I was almost every other scene, it's oh, that's not very realistic. But what if it's like you were saying earlier about the ice comet that falls?
Yeah, it's in near synchronicity with the Earth's orbit, in which case all the ice crystals manage to blow off and
without necessarily exploding or heating up the atmosphere.
No, in this case it'd be like a comet that would be a head closer to the sun. In that case, the stuff blowing off, the little particulate that blows off, would wind up getting caught by the Earth's gravitational pull.
It would have to be a rather large comet.
I didn't say it had to be a small one.
In fact, it would have to be
Heck, you could even have a Shoemaker-Levy 9 situation go on, whereby one breaks up into small enough pieces, and let's face it, the Earth is currently 70% water. There's a good chance no, it didn't destroy New York City, it just splashed into the ocean, but there was enough of it. This is a huge problem. Mega tsunamis going all over the place, and enough actual liquid mass added to the ocean so that there's flooding everywhere once it all melts out.
I'd actually be curious because, to ask, maybe somebody could do the math if they were but I suspect if the comet was large enough to add a significant amount to the oceans, I wonder if just simply the energy of that hitting the Earth would actually shoot that water back out, so
On
that
the other
you.
side, just go
Well,
splash.
because when water, when like a rock falls in a pond and it splashes the water up,
Yeah.
like straight up, the same thing happens with if a comet were to strike the ocean.
In which case,
some
I
of
think
the
the
ocean-
gravity would wind up just making sure that there's water splash everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess depending on how big it was, like I'm thinking if
Keep
it's
in mind when you're working at the high speeds as well, you start getting going straight from liquid splash to gaseous.
well, yeah, that's the other thing. The comet would vaporize basically, if not in the atmosphere, on impact, because that's a whole lot of energy. So it would vaporize, and then that vapor would somehow have to fall back to Earth if it didn't shoot back straight up into space
out
again.
into orbit. Oh, yeah, on the other hand, maybe you get a little water on the moon that way. So you got this nice little different moon. So that's how you know you're in the weird futures. The moon's different, man.
Well, technically there is a tiny, there's trace amounts of water on the moon. They found that.
Yeah, but then you could have the moon be like this giant icy ball going on there, and so
Okay.
it have a completely different shimmer style to it. And be like, oh man, it's so beautiful.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I'm thinking it might not sync up. Like there might be no point at which it's slow enough to not vaporize.
Which is why in my
Yeah,
head canon
anyways.
I put it so that its particulate was bombarding the Earth with all this stuff.
Okay, well, yeah.
In which case,
good
you
enough.
blow out your GPS sort of stuff as everything gets hit by tiny, high-moving water droplets, and then it adds enough mass, to the Earth as it rains, forever down. That oh no, everything got flooded away.
Although here's another thing, I vaguely remember reading this in some linked to Science Story or something, but there is a huge amount of water beneath the crust and everything like that, basically and that kind of feeds the oceans and everything like that. And they're calling it the Earth's second ocean or something, even though it's it's bound to the rocks and it's not really water, but it is.
Yeah.
It does have some effect. But it ultimately
it's carbon sequestration. In this case, it'd be water
yeah,
sequestration.
and it is water, so it is a source, and some of it seeps up through the. But it would be interesting if you could tell an imaginary, a fanciful story where some chemical reaction happened inside the Earth where
the Earth got hit by something and it just managed to liquefy that rock, so all the stored water
so that
gets
stored
up
water
released.
flows out, and that raises the water level, something like that.
Good enough. That's all I ask for the back premise.
Yeah.
That's my exploration of the pre-plot. That's what makes me happy. That's all I ask.
So yeah, okay. So that was a long way to get around to headcanon.
But yeah, you wind up establishing your own storyline as it goes, just to help fill in the blanks until or if they ever provide the actual answer.
Yeah, and that's a little bit like that role-playing your zombie character too, and
Kobe Steele.
yeah.
His name is Kobe Steele.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got a name, I roleplay. But yeah, so I suppose one of the best and easiest ways is to go through the other two pillars of role-playing, the exploration and the interaction.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing Monopoly or Risk sort of thing, try and be the character you are. If I'm, I've got, the Black Army and I am the undead sort of thing, then I'm going to make deals with people and I'm going to be what would it be like if let's say the undead this time, I'm going to be ghouls. What would it be like if the ghoul nation made an alliance with, I don't know, who's one of the other armies supposed to be? Australia? Yeah, what happens if the ghouls make an alliance with Australia?
Wait, which game?
In Risk, in this case.
Okay,
Yeah.
in Risk, yeah.
What happens then? How do they, what sort of deals do they make? Is it very cutthroat? Is it very, I'm going to totally backstab you on this one, am I treacherous? Meanwhile, do my army, the green army of the swamp mass, of living creatures, do they even make deals with any other players? Do they speak to the other ones? No, they play silent and deadly. Da-da-da-dun.
Yeah, and then you never truly lose a game, because if you lost, you're like, well, I guess the swamp people weren't up to it. Nothing I could have
The swamp people
done.
finally got defeated. Justice for the humans once again. Or, like go over into Monopoly sort of thing. It's like, yes, I'm playing the battleship in this case, so I'm going to be very the aggressive attack forward style. Do this. Meanwhile, I'm playing the car over here, in which case it's a very leisurely car. I'll play footloose, fancy free style.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm the cat. I'm just going to play like a jerk, because cats are jerks.
So interaction is like I guess you're interacting with other players, and you might speak to them as if you're the car.
In the manner thereof, of like a rich man who owns a Dalliance car.
And I suppose some players might take that better than others, and some be like, why are you doing that? But I suppose if they know you and they're like, yeah that's Ryan, he's weird. Okay. Or somebody might be like, have at thee, I say, from my iron stronghold, the iron.
Oh, very nice.
So
in that case, whenever
from the Iron Kingdom,
if you're playing the iron, then whenever you wind up getting money, you gotta like try and strike at the other players because you gotta strike while the iron is hot. Yeah, that's the thing is you wait for the time to when you heat up and then you go really aggressive. Until then, you play it cool, play it soft. Mm-hmm. Play it just careful. Very interesting.
Iron gets soft when it gets hot, and hard when it's cool.
But when it's hot, that's when it hurts the most. I mean, you can get tapped by iron when it's cool, and that's okay. You get tapped by iron when it's hot, that hurts.
It's always gonna hurt, and it's gonna be hot, so it's gonna burn you. But actually, probably as far as like structural damage,
that's why I said tap rather than bash.
I mean, if you're
an interaction with an iron, it's not that bad unless it's hot. Once it heats up, then you got to be careful from it.
I don't know. I can imagine like
so
somebody.
You start the game off as the iron, and you're playing all friendly like. Then you get yourself a Monopoly. You get yourself some houses, and then you're not playing friendly anymore. You're playing aggressive because you are the iron is hot now, and you're out to burn the other players.
Well, yeah, but also like when the iron is hot. When you this is how that phrase works, at least as far as I understand.
You gotta strike the iron when it's hot.
Because the iron is the thing that you're striking. You're striking a piece of iron on an anvil. You're striking it because it is hot and it's malleable, so it's going to get ruined.
But in this case, the iron as it is I don't know why they chose an iron for like what seems rich or full of good fortune. Battleship, car, recently a cat. And then for some reason they included a thimble and an iron.
Well, my headcanon for the Monopoly pieces was it was trinkets that you might already have around your house. Like here's your iron, clunk on the table.
It's a little too big to properly.
But yeah, you can maybe fit a small iron. You could maybe fit on one square, or like maybe like assume that a corner or the center of the iron.
You got to keep it propped up the entire time as you're moving it.
Well, because you don't want to burn the board.
Well, what are you doing striking when the iron's hot there, man? You got to keep that iron cool.
Because there's a thimble, right? And everybody has thimbles.
Well, they used to. That was a thing back in the 50s. It's kind of less common now, I suppose.
Well, I own at least a couple thimbles because I've bought little sewing kits over the years, and they come with a little thimble.
But it's not to the same thing like, oh, where do we keep the thimble there, honey? Oh, it's
it's right in the thimble closet. Yeah. All the thimbles fall down on you.
Thimbled. The end. But yeah, I mean, you want to play the thimble in that case. You're going to play domestic style. What you want is to get a lot of properties and a few houses. Don't want to go with the hotels sort of thing. Just a few houses on there. You don't want to be the big and put all your investments one area. In that case, you want to get like the monopoly areas, which is like sewing everything up together.
Yeah, you want to
and
sew.
then the few houses for the domestic nature.
Sew it up.
Sewing indicates.
Sew up the game.
Yeah, and that's where you sew. Or you can make sure that if you're playing the thimble, you only go for one of the monopolies on each corner of the board. So you don't go for both of them, because that way, if you get like 4 monopolies, one each color set on each side of the board, you've made a quilt. Oh ho ho! Very nice.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, you can have a lot of fun. I think the Monopoly would be intrinsically better that way, just by playing it in that style. Because at least that way, less bruised feelings. Like, oh, I can't believe you screwed me over again. I thought you were my brother. I'm going to smash you, and I'm never going to love you again.
Yeah, I
Which
like
is actually why I like some of the Monopoly stuff that works with a different, like, board set. Like, I believe right underneath the couch you're sitting on, we have Monopoly Episode 1 for Star Wars. In which case, yes, instead of worrying about like what's the personality of a thimble, you say, no, I'm playing Darth Maul. Guess my playing style. So it makes it a little easier.
I played a pirate game the other day at one of the board game meetups, and I can't remember what it's called now. I'll probably put a link in the show notes, but it's a sort of a cartoony pirate game where you go around the board and kind of it's a map, one of these treasure maps, and it's sort of half race, half treasure hunt, because you go around the circle and in theory you're racing, but you're also picking up treasure along the way, and you can backstab and fire cannons at people and stuff, and you can pick up gunpowder or food, supplies, and whatever. And one of the things is like each ship has a little like cartoon identity, and it's like your ship is the green Booger Pirates, or I can't remember what it's, something like that, something like the silly blue barnacle, I think that's from Tintin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyways,
pirates. Thousands blistering blue barnacles.
Anyways,
Captain
yeah.
Haddock.
So you're actually, and I think this happens in a few different modern games. Some don't, but you are given that sort of that personality, in that this isn't you that's like racing around the board. This is the blue pirates or the yellow pirates.
The yellow belly pirates.
What happens to them, and like sometimes you've lost a crew member or whatever. Or,
yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit detaching. I don't know if that's like because it helps to be able to identify, to say, this is me, like I care about this game because I'm in it and in it to win it. But I guess, you
take things less personally, so when the board game is done, so are your feelings going on there.
Yeah.
Which I very much approve of. I have played many board games with family members where things bleed over afterwards, and you're just, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
Sort of stuff. And so, I do like that little extra distance, the little extra personality from the character. That way it's like, I can't believe Bluebeard got me on that one. Ooh, a horrible underbellied pirate.
Yeah.
How dare they attack us yellow bellies.
Here's another example, is Small World, where you're an empire for a little while, and then you just become a whole different, I'm not the zombies anymore, now I'm the wizards.
That's how you're supposed to play it. The one time when I learned how to play it, I was the Ratlings the entire darn time.
That's tempting, though, and that might actually be a little flaw with Small World.
If I had played it smarter at the beginning, I probably would have tied for first. But as it was, it's like, empire building, so I guess I gotta try and keep it. But once I learned the ropes, I lost a unit or two, so I was like, I can't get maximum for that out. But the Ratlings give you a decent amount. So what I did was every turn, Ratlings go off the board, Ratlings go back on the board, and I kept wiping out and sweating out. Effectively, they became like the barbarians at the gates. Every turn, they'd disappear after pillaging, and then they'd come back out and they'd ravage the land once again.
Yeah, because players, they sort of get attached to their, like, I'm playing the Ratlings, okay, we'll do that. And then with Small World, it's very quickly that it's like, okay, you're kind of, there's nothing else you can do as a Ratling, so you got to go into decline and choose a new race.
As for me in that case, it would just be that the number of units you have. If Ratlings had a little less units, I wouldn't have thought that play style of ravaging the countryside every turn as I come in from the north side, come in from the south side. I don't think it would have been anywhere near as viable. So if I had chosen a different race to start with, I probably would have played it, air quotes, properly.
Yeah, sure.
But then again, I was still learning, so there's no shame in losing the first time you play a game.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. And the nice thing about Small World is there are multiple, like you play it again, it has good replay value
because the randomization of the race type
so
style.
You can try a new thing each time, for many times. So that's worth it. How long? What does yours say?
I got 127.
Okay, cool. I just want to mention our email address, thesimulationist@gmail.com. And Facebook.com/thesimulationist. Leave a like and a comment for us on that Facebook page if you do enjoy the show. And leave a little review for us, please. We'll take as many stars as you feel like giving us. on iTunes reviews or on Stitcher reviews or on wherever else you find that you're able to review it.
I'm proud to note, if you Google us, and you get to the Simulat, we are the first entry up on that. So thank you for getting us that close, that far. We are eventually one day hoping for the Simu. I don't think we'll ever beat the Sims, but the Simu, I think, is going to be our goal for getting up on the top of that Google autofill search. So.
Yeah.
So thank you on that, everyone out there, and if you can't remember the last couple characters of our name, at least you can get us that far. The Simulat, and the Ationist comes there, autofill.
Simulat, the Ionist. Ooh, that's kind of cool. That sounds like
the Simulat sounds pretty like this is a think tank for that thinks weird thoughts, things you are not meant to know, the conspiracy thoughts, the Simulat.
Ooh, yeah.
They're the ones who engineer the real reality from the falsehoods that you think is real. The Simulat.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da.
Twitter. No. I'm on Twitter at SpaceBoot1.
I might find you on Twitter if you're entertaining enough. I hunt the Twitterverse.
I don't have nearly enough followers, so if the listeners are listening, please do follow, and please tell a friend about this podcast and my Twitter account, and share us with the world. Because
if you had a bad gaming experience, like on the board game with someone, and they hold a grudge against you, send them the link to this iteration. That way they can learn, no, you weren't being personal when you attacked and completely prevented them from winning that Settlers of Catan game. You were just playing in the style of that empire.
Yeah.
It was a role-playing thing. Don't take it personal.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all the social media stuff. So I guess we'll finish up with some final thoughts.
I do think it takes an interesting, subtle shift in mindset to play a game and then suddenly say, I'm going to make this like a role-playing thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to play Monopoly in accordance to the principles of a fickle cat.
Yeah, well,
which I like to keep using because it's the new one that everyone brought in. And it's, big news, right?
It's probably something that a few people just sort of do automatically, and some games lend themselves more to it than others. But it's also something you can sort of intentionally, I want to have a bit more fun with role-playing games, or with board games, or whatever. Let me try that. Let me try this. And it might help, like, you might, if you're the kind of person who joins a new group or tries new things with different people, it might help you customize yourself to the new group if somebody in there is like weird like that, or if you, I don't know, it could be an icebreaker too. Yeah. It could be a way to approach gaming with people you don't really know.
Or if you just have a lot of board games but not a lot of funds to do that sort of stuff with, it is a nice extra breath of fresh air to try it with a different style.
Mm-hmm.
That way.
And the other thing you can do is if you record it and put it up as a podcast, send us the link, obviously. But that makes you more interesting and exciting, and people want to listen to it.
If you can come up with a plot for Hungry Hungry Hippos, I want to read it. I want to know why those hippos are so hungry you have to say it twice.
Interesting. Yeah.
I want to know. Man. If you have tactics on how to win on Hungry Hungry Hippo, I'd also be interested in learning on that one.
Is it the tactic is just smash
as fast as you can in general. I did recall a cousin once telling me that there was a style for when the amount of the little balls get low in there. For doing it a different style at a different pace to make sure you grab for it as opposed to just randomly spamming it. In which case,
you go for the right resonance.
Well, that way,
shake the board.
That way you get more in there, with every hippo, attack, as opposed to accidentally knocking some away because you're just flipping it so randomly nothing gets in proper. So, maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe he was just blowing smoke at me just to make me try and play the game differently, and then he gets the last couple pieces and he wins. I don't know. I haven't tried to find perfect game theory on Hungry Hungry Hippo yet.
I think it's possible.
I don't know if there's a perfect game theory for Hungry Hungry Hippo. I don't think there's a way you can get everything and nobody gets a single point.
Because, it's basically snatching balls from the table when they come by.
Well, at the start, you can work it out to biology. It's a filter feeding. There's no way you can't get it. But then when things start getting scarce, and everything's moving around, you got to work at a proper attack style to get it at the right time as opposed to accidentally knocking it off.
Interesting. So there's a beginning game and an end game to that.
I believe there might be. I don't know if anyone has actually studied it or if anyone besides me would care about it. But there just might be something like that. But, well, that said, it's like, I'm kind of hungry for my hippo, but I'm greedy hippo now. I'll still get it just to make sure you starve.
What are they eating that's all spherical? Is it supposed to be like fruit or something?
Boy, it would be nice if they colored it into various fruit styles to make it, a little bit better off.
Yeah.
I always just went for something silly, like, those little birds that, like clean between their teeth?
Yeah.
It's their eggs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
These hippos like, oh no, you made my gums bleed one too many times. I shall eat your unborn children now. Because yes, I do add that sort of thought even when I was young. So that's if you're tracing back, like a psychologist, that goes that far back for the weirdness.
What do hippos eat? They're vegetarians.
Yes.
So they just eat grass?
Swamp muck, river
swamp
muck,
grass,
sort of thing.
Muck.
A lot of it. They're not a small creature.
Yeah, I would imagine they'd have to eat lots of...
Oh, except for the house hippos. We know exactly what they eat because we've seen the commercials.
And, let me see, in Zoo Tycoon, I think they just eat hay.
Effectively.
From what I remember.
They are vegetarian. That said, they can come up on the ground, so maybe they have like a diurnal and nocturnal eating things. Yeah. Although I don't suppose that they actually go up on the ground at all during the night. They're not exactly fast, so they'd be easy prey. Probably
well, they're big, though.
Yeah, but big doesn't make much of a
lions
difference.
No, an adult hippo can fight off a lion. But maybe one lion.
Unless the lion gets on its back, and the hippo doesn't have a lot of defenses that way, except maybe rolling.
I'm going to go to YouTube after the podcast and go look up
hippo
lions
attacks
versus hippos.
On YouTube. All right. Hungry, deadly hippos.
Yeah. Hungry lions, where you have a hungry hippo game in the middle, and then on the outside you have like lions circling around it, and you bash the lions to eat the hippos.
That beats my concept of making it the Colosseum with a bunch of little, spherical Christians.
Oh, nice.
So apparently you went to a better spot than I did automatically. I tip my hat to you, Josh.
I like hungry lions because it's like the old woman who swallowed the fly. You can have hungry flies in the middle, hungry birds, hungry cats, hungry like in concentric circles around.
Nice.
Okay, a dog eats the cat, a goat eats the dog.
Sometimes you skip the goat; it goes straight to like the horse or cow.
Cows don't eat dogs. What? That song doesn't make any sense.
It does break down at the higher trophic levels. It does add, however which way you go about it, it has to end with the horse. According to the story, the horse is the apex predator of the farmland. Take from that what you will. I mean, like this whole thing gets really weird in the story, anyways, because all the animals are still alive.
I skipped spider, but bird.
I don't know, Hungry Spider takes a really creepy turn to it. Because then you got a whole bunch of silly string in the whole thing, and you got to spray the silly string and get it.
Yeah, that'd be great. And every time,
it does give an excuse to sell more silly string. Maybe it'll become a thing.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've gone kind of off the rails and finished off the topic, yes?
But that's the thing, is we're now role-playing as the trophic levels of the hungry hippo world. We're seeing the world beyond just these hungry hippos. Mm-hmm. And, well, maybe that's a nice tip, too, is try and imagine the bigger, broader setting for which this is taking place is a nice way of thinking about it. Like, what the heck is going on in Monopoly? Why are these properties so valuable?
Yeah.
If you can win the game and you get, like, a majority of the properties, you bankrupt everyone else, then you have enough pieces to put together to assemble to find the treasure map to the lost Inca gold.
That's true, because you mentioned in earlier a couple times that there are 3 pillars to role-playing, and we didn't cover exploration. Now, could you somehow convert Monopoly to a game where you discover properties and how much they're valued?
I sacrifice the 2 hotels and one and make use of. I tap my railroad card, and that allows me to go into the secret hidden second Monopoly board, and then everyone really starts looking at you weird.
But I don't know. You could roll randomly for the placements of the properties.
Anytime you pass go, you got to roll an extra, like an 8-sided dice. On an 8, you go to the Nether Monopoly.
Ooh, yeah.
Or the anti-monopoly.
The Hell Monopoly.
Oh yeah, I can dig that, man.
And there's like a Heaven Monopoly and a Hell Monopoly. It's
Hell-monopoly.
It's 3D Monopoly instead of 3D chess.
You know what? There you go. If I'm ever working anything for like a futuristic story setting, it's going to have 3D Monopoly going on, and there will be, like a heaven and hell sort of thing.
Or I guess there'd be sewers. That might be another.
Oh no!
option.
Okay, no. If I'm going to work it for space stuff, then there'll be like a space Monopoly for the higher one, regular ground Monopoly for the middle one, and then we're going to have like aquatic Monopoly, for like the underwater, like Atlantis-style colonies there.
Yeah.
And there we go. That's my 3D Monopoly set going on there. In which case, I suppose if I'm redesigning the entire board, there's multiple paths you can take. So you can take the path that leads you down there versus the path. It's a lot longer to take the space elevator to get up into Space Monopoly, but that lunar property is really primo stuff. Grants you some extra special abilities.
Yeah, but you don't want to land on there, especially with 3 hotels. Oh boy.
Well, that's the thing. You land on there with 3 hotels. Instead of paying the price, the owner of the property has the option of an orbital bombardment, reducing the value of all terrestrial monopolies by either 1 house or downgrade the hotel to like 3 houses. It's rather complex and a lot more vicious.
Okay.
But I think it's got some fun replay value on it that way.
Cool. Yeah, so I don't know if we should... Yeah, no, that's probably enough for
That's
now.
That's where we should end it. We're getting weird now.
We'll be back again in another week, and a whole new episode of the Simulationist podcast, a whole new topic. Unless
we get a lot of, like stuff like you guys got to make this Monopoly thing, in which case we might have to do a tangent series.
Yeah, we'll do a whole mailbag on this episode.
If it gets poppy enough, you got to let us know. Otherwise, it's just, put out there for Parker Brothers to one day pick up as a... Well, I mean, heck, they're selling the rights to Monopoly to basically anyone these days. I think for a decent song, we might be able to get this for ourselves. And on proper Monopoly rules, there's a lot of space in the center of that board. You could split the terrestrial Monopoly up into one half, aquatic Monopoly on the other half, and then just have, like a lunar and a deep space sort of thing going on for the an upper board level. We could do it, man.
Cool.
Nega Monopoly, get a second board going on the other. We could have a lot of fun with this. But yes, we should probably end it there.
Okay. I've been Josh Gillette.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
Send money.